Hey, I'm Kelly Hogan, and welcome back to my Zero Carb Life. I'm going to give an intro in case we have anybody new around here, but I'm going to do it in less than 2 minutes, and then we are going to move on to some things I've never said before. I promise. So, 21 years ago, I was obese and quite sick. I kept getting these boils on my legs. I was on acne medication. I had IBS symptoms, both sides of the IBS, if you know what I mean. I had anxiety, especially nighttime induced anxiety. And when I went to my doctor, he told me to cut out all carbs. Now, I loved carbs, so that was pretty terrible. This was bad news. It was very hard, but I was also very desperate and sick, so I did it. And after 5 years of eating very few carbs, I then started a carnivore diet, and that was 16 years ago. Only animal products. Now, I am 47. Well, 47 tomorrow, January 25th. And I'm at a healthy weight. I have zero negative symptoms. And I mean literally zero. I have no pain, no boils, no gut problems, no skin issues, no more anxiety. In fact, my husband probably wishes I had just a little bit of nighttime anxiety because I forget to lock the doors when he is at home. And for all these years, it has been just burger patties, so many burger patties, steak, fish, eggs, simple, mostly burger patties. And it's worked like a champ. Great results, zero complaints. There you go. There's your intro. That is it for the old news. We're going to move on to some new stuff. About 15 months ago, I started craving fat. And I don't just mean a fatty steak. I mean literally just fat. Now, it's not the first time this has happened. About 3 years ago, I started really craving fat too. And after several months, it passed. And I just went back to burger patties, chicken thighs, steak, just your regular run-of-the-mill carnivore diet. But this desire for fat came back at the end of 2024. So I found myself at the butcher again, getting those fat trimmings. Again, just the fat that's been cut off the steaks. I started eating tons of egg yolks with lots of butter. Started having tons of heavy cream. I mostly ate the heavy cream in the form of carnivore ice cream. It is unsweetened. It is barely even a recipe. It is so simple, but it is very tried and true. And I started making this when my 14-year-old daughter was a toddler. I'll also put the recipe in the description box below. Okay, back to the story. So about 15 months ago, I was craving this carnivore ice cream, plus egg yolks and the beef fat. And that's just what I wanted to eat pretty much every day. Now, I didn't think it was wise to just eat only fat every single day, though that's literally what I was wanting. So I would sort of take turns between a pure fat day and then the next day I would eat some meat. It was still high fat meats. And I'm talking like flanking ribs, well, beef ribs, eggs, but with extra yolks and extra butter, fatty steak. I did eat quite a few carnivore bars because they are very high in fat. I'm not going to put an ad here. I'm not affiliated or anything. They've never paid me a penny. They have sent me some free carnivore bars. I just really like them. And I love the fact that they were so fatty. All right. So I stuck to this high fat version of carnivore for all of 2025 because I wanted to. That's it. I wanted to. There were very few days that my fat was any less than 80% of my total calories. Now that's high fat carnivore. And there were 117 days that I ate nothing but fat in the form of cream, butter, beef fat, and a few egg yolks. Yes, 117 days. I keep a spreadsheet, so I literally went back and counted. I also did the math on that. That is 32% of the entire year was pure fat those days. Okay, on the days when I did have the protein, it really was about 20% or fewer of my total calories came from protein. So 2025 was the least amount of protein I have ever eaten as a carnivore. And would I have ever thought that that was even remotely a good idea? No, I would not have. In fact, If you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have said that sounds like a terrible idea, digestively, health-wise. But my body really, really loved the fat. I woke up every day just wanting it. And I would tell myself, okay, eat the fat right now, but at the next meal, we're going to have some protein. And then the next meal would come and I didn't want it. I just wanted more fat. So I ate it. And I would go back and forth in my mind. I was really torn, like, but I feel really good. This is fine. But is it fine? You feel good. Just go with it. This was not just an experiment. It's just literally what I wanted to eat. And then eventually, of course, I got really curious to see how is this going to go? And I kept waiting for something dramatic or bad to happen, like for my body composition scales to show that my muscle mass was just falling off in clumps, or waiting for more hair fall, or waiting for my lifts at the gym to suffer. I kept waiting for my overall weight to go up, for acne to come back, for my body fat to increase, for some scene from The Exorcist to take place in my kitchen. Nothing. None of it. I just kept feeling good. I liked the way I looked, and I really liked the way it all tasted. So I kept going. And at some point, some negative thoughts creeped up, some little questions like, what is all of this fat going to do to my lipid panel? And since so many people say that dairy is inflammatory, am I going to get inflamed? What will happen to my CRP levels? These questions were just building, which is a little silly because I did not feel inflamed at all. It was a lot of heavy cream. I mean, most days it was more than 3 cups of heavy cream. Now, it's important to mention, though I have said this in other videos, I do not combine dairy with meat or protein. So I never put cheese on my burgers, for example. I know, that's sad because I love cheeseburgers. And I never eat steak with a side of ice cream. The only dairy I ever combine with protein is if I'm just cooking my meat or eggs with a little butter. Otherwise, I keep my pure fat dairy meals completely separate from my meaty meals. And I always put at least 4 hours between these things. I know that sounds like some type of Jewish law or something. This was not for religious reasons, okay? It's because I tracked my own data for a really long time and just I just realized, I looked at the data and could see when I put meat with the dairy, my scale jumps up really quickly. And if I eat dairy completely on its own, just pure fat, that does not happen. Good to know. I do not make the rules, but I do take very close notes. Okay, let's get back to the lab work. I had my blood drawn last week, and I did not announce it to anyone, not even my very, very close friends. Not to Instagram for sure. I didn't even tell my husband or my family that I was going to have it checked because I didn't know what to expect. Just being real. I was a little nervous about it. Am I going to suddenly have deficiencies or something suddenly goes crazy on my lab work? And I thought, if so, I know what to do. I'm just going to go back to burger patties, the whole egg, less cream. But I also thought, pretty young. It's probably reversible, whatever damage I have done during this year. So I just got back from seeing my doctor. The results are in. First of all, my doctor walked in and the first thing he said is, well, Miss Hogan, Well, Miss Hogan, your total cholesterol has gone down 100 points since last year. I'm sure my face was like, what? Are you sure? He's like, yes, he was sure. He also told me that my HDL, also known as the good cholesterol, is up to 77, which I love that for me. My good cholesterol is not normally that high. Really happy about that. My triglycerides are 66 milligrams per deciliter, which is slightly higher than usual, but 66 is still less than my HDL, 77. And anytime we can get our HDL and triglycerides 1-to-1, or even get your HDL higher than your triglycerides, that strongly correlates to good heart health. Far more than total cholesterol, by the way. This is very good news. Okay, a little side note about these triglycerides. Before I get lab work done, I have tested this many, many times. If I have coffee within a day or two of having my triglycerides checked, then that number is going to be higher. There is research. It is not just me. And it's not the caffeine, because I don't even use caffeine. It is literally the coffee bean causes triglycerides to look higher. And some people are hyper responders, so it really makes a difference. And it does for me. I did not cut out coffee this time because honestly, I was not worried about my triglycerides. So for it to come back at 66, having not cut out coffee, I feel really good about. If you don't know what's even normal for triglycerides, anything below 150 is considered normal. Anything below 100 is considered optimal. So yeah, 66 is like, if you look it up online, it is called elite. Yeah. So maybe curtsy the next time you see me, darling. But that gives me a triglyceride to HDL ratio of 0.86. It's good. All right. My LDL was lower than before, but like many a carnivore, higher than considered normal. It is now 186. At times, it has been over 200. Having a high LDL is considered a fairly non-issue if someone has a CAC score of 0. That's not just carnivore advice. You can look that up. There's research to back it up. And I've always had a 0 on my CAC score. I even had an ultrasound done of my carotid arteries about 18 months ago. The results were great. I have also had an LDL particle size test done to see if I had the large, fluffy, see that? That is a crocheted, large, fluffy LDL particle, which is good. That's what you want, versus the tiny, sticky ones that cause all the trouble. And mine were deemed as the A type, fluffy. B type is what we call B for bad. All right, so my arteries are clear. My LDL is fluffy. I'm not worried about my total LDL. And thankfully, neither is my doctor. Okay, let's talk about this inflammation thing. From all the dairy, surely I am inflamed. But it turns out there's a reason I felt zero pain or inflammation this past year. And it's because, as it turns out, I was not inflamed. My high sensitivity CRP score is 0.3, 0.3 milligrams per liter, which indicates very low inflammation. Anything that's below a 1.0 is classified as excellent. So they also put on there low cardiovascular risk. Great. Love it. But there is something I want you to know about a CRP score. Getting a low score is really reassuring. It's lovely. It means there is no noteworthy systemic inflammation in this body. However, if you ever have a slightly elevated high sensitivity CRP score, it does not mean you're about to fall over dead of a cardiac event. Any illness or injury can cause that number to go up pretty quickly. So whether you have a cold or sunburn, a UTI, a broken leg, okay, whatever inflammation is in your body will show up. It doesn't have to be big, bad inflammation. So you could have, say, a 1.5 and honestly, just have a small something wrong with you. But it does indicate there's some inflammation in your body. So please keep an eye on it. It does matter, but I just wanted you to have a better understanding of that test. Now we're going to talk about A1C. It is well documented that carbohydrates are going to have the biggest impact on glucose. There is nothing that's going to jack up somebody's blood sugar like donuts or a giant bowl of pasta. As for protein has a far less dramatic impact, but can still have an impact. And for someone who's type 2 diabetic, a large amount of lean meat, pure protein, can cause a notable rise. I've seen this in many people. Now, pure fat has the least impact on glucose. I mean, boop, okay, really small. And if you don't believe me, in fact, don't. Just test it. Get a little finger prick test at your local drugstore, Walmart, for about $25. Test it with different macros. I wouldn't necessarily start testing a bunch of carbs if you are a recovered sugar addict. Just be careful what you're testing. But you can check different meats. Check whatever you want to check. It's your blood. I do have a home finger prick meter, and I have checked in many, countless times through the years. I've also worn multiple CGMs through the years. And I found that my morning blood sugar runs at about 80 if I eat high fat and when I limit protein a bit. So I was not worried about my A1C. I have checked in some over the past year and all seemed to be well, but it was actually even lower than I had predicted. My A1C, when I'm just doing a normal standard eat your meat carnivore diet, stays at about 5.2. You don't know, 5.2 it's great. After a year of eating a lot of fat, including 117 days of eating only fat, my A1C had dropped to 4.6. That means that on average, my blood sugar, if you take the average all day, every day, stayed in the low 80s pretty much all of the time for at least the last 3 months. And that does correlate with what I found on my home meter. So for reference, anything below a 5.7 is considered normal. And I'm happy with a 4.6, especially since I do no water fasting or extended fasting. I eat 3 times every single day, sometimes 4. And as I talked about in a recent video, my caloric average for the entire year of 2025, I went through the spreadsheet, highlighted the entire year, and my average was 2,344 calories a day. So I am definitely not under eating to get that A1C results. That's wild. I'm very tickled with the A1C. Now, I think it is very important at this point to pause and just say that eating pure fat is still not my general recommendation for how to do the carnivore diet. If you are just starting out on carnivore, I think you should eat meat. Any meat that you love, that makes you feel good, great if you can also afford it. I think a very safe recommendation is for all carnivores to get at least 30 grams of protein at most of their meals. So 2 to 3 times per day, get at least 30 grams of protein. So that would be like 2 quarter-pound beef patties or 5 eggs or a 5-ounce New York strip or a 6-ounce ribeye. 6-ounce ribeye. However, I do not subscribe to the idea that everyone must eat 150 to 2 million grams of protein per day. Sorry. I have personally worked with women who do really well when they keep their protein at the amount that is actually recommended in the 2 largest meta-analysis studies on protein that have ever been conducted. Together, these 2 meta-analyses looked at over 100 total separate studies on protein. I will link to those below. The recommendation from both of these meta-analysis studies said that muscle mass gains were optimized when they took the person's ideal body weight, so for me that's 130 pounds, and multiply that times 0.75. So that would be how many grams of protein was recommended by both of these research teams based on the literature available. And I have recently seen a video by Bella, Steak and Butter Gal, talking about that same research and how she had been trying to force down more and more and more protein, and it was not helpful to her. I have heard Dr. Baker talk about those same studies and giving that same recommendation. Another important point from both of those large meta-analysis studies, though, is that resistance training is the only way to actually grow muscle mass. I know to many of you that seems obvious. Because you could lay in bed just breathing and eating as many pounds of chicken breast and salmon all day, every day, unlimited pounds of protein. And I'm telling you, your muscles will waste away. You cannot out-protein being sedentary. So there's no use in worrying, how much protein should I eat, if you are literally not using your muscles. We have to send the stimulus. It doesn't mean you have to become a gym bro throwing around massive dumbbells all day, every day, but you have to use the muscles you want to keep. All right. Now, if all of this pure fat thing sounds insane, then maybe you have not heard Nick Norwitz talk about the FGF21 hormone and how it relates to fat fasting. And maybe you haven't heard Dr. Ben Bickman and Dave Asprey talk about how fat fasting is the most effective form of fasting they have ever experienced. Yeah, they did. And maybe you haven't read about fat fasting in the books by Dr. Boz and Dr. Mindy Pelz. And if that's the case, you are missing some very valuable information. And you might have some catching up to do. So I will link to some of those resources below. Oh, and I only do 1 day of fat fasting at a time because my body does start to crave some protein. And something I just thought of, side rant. Some of the same people who will put down doing a fat fast for a day or so because your protein is too low, it's not safe. Some of those same people will do a 3-day water fast frequently, or a 7-day dry fast. At least with a fat fast where I'm having pure fat, I'm getting abundant calories with a great source of fuel. So yes, it is low on protein, and so is water. But water fasting has been studied extensively, and fat fasting is now being looked into, especially in regards to that FGF21 hormone. So if people love water fasting, and I do not, but they feel great doing it, and a day or two per week, they decide to have nothing but water, I have no issue with that, especially if they are not chronically under-eating. This is how much you should have. Chronic under-eaters. If you're eating way down here, and now you're throwing water fasts on top of that, I do see that go poorly. You can overdo the water fasting and the under-eating. But I happen to love eating pure fat, and I feel great doing it. So there is more than one way to get results. Let's please stay open-minded here, people. But I also want to be really real and honest. Protein is essential. I don't only think we should eat it, we literally have to if you're going to stay alive. Same as fat. Not the same with carbs. But protein, yes, we have to have it. This experiment for me was much more out of curiosity and due to my body's own request for fat than it was about making any recommendations for other people to drop protein. I was really just wanting it and then also curious. Wonder what that's going to do. All right, so the reasons I'm making this video then are because, one, I found it interesting, thought maybe you would too. Also, I thought, number two, maybe some of you are also craving fat and worried that it might be a bad thing to listen to your body's requests. Number three, carnivore ice cream tastes amazing. I thought it would be rude of me to keep these lab results to myself since I literally got them by eating like a happy 6-year-old on her birthday. 4, maybe somebody in your life has told you that eating fat makes you fat, or that dairy instantly makes everyone inflamed, or that you must eat 300 grams of protein in order to not lose muscle. Now, if dairy does make you inflamed, I feel like that's a no-brainer. And if you do get your best results with 300 grams of protein, fantastic. But I thought this video would at least give you something to think about. I like thinking. Oh, maybe you would too. I do not have all the answers, but eating 117 days of pure fat last year reassured me that I am not the only one around here without all of the answers. Hear, and amen. There are a lot of unanswered questions. I don't even think we know all the questions yet, let alone all of the answers. My own doctor had tons of questions. He's fascinated. Okay, last thing. If you personally feel better or get better results by limiting your fat closer to 60% of overall calories, which is about as low as I recommend on a carnivore diet, please do that. I mean it. If you don't have a need or desire to track your calories or macros at all ever, then please don't do that. And if you get your best muscle gains at the gym when you lift weights and eat as many grams of protein as there are stars in the night sky, wonderful. I'm not here to convince you to do any of the things that I just did over the past year. I am simply reporting today. When I work with my groups, I love to present them with the latest research. So I go over new studies every month so we can learn and then discuss them together. I want to hear from real people who can share their own real experiences and their own real results. That's what I like to learn from. And I love sharing my data. I want to learn what actually gives people better results, far more than I care about just following rules or being the most, I don't know, typical carnivore or compliant carnivore. So my aim is to foster a community where we can actually try things and track the results and learn from one another. And this video is just a small look into what I have noticed with eating pure fat. If you would like to learn more or see my personal spreadsheets or surround yourself with people who are breaking free from addiction, and you want to have daily contact with myself, with the 4 assistant coaches, with a large group of thriving humans, then I would love to work with you. And if just showing up on Saturdays is enough for you and you are doing great, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. I might get some flack for this one, but folks, it is what it is. And I hope to see you back next Saturday. Bye.